Hi, this is Professor JPS. This is Communication Arts 205. This is a lecture. This is Tuesday evening, April 5th, for tomorrow's April 6th, what would have been tomorrow's April 6th class. And we're starting to move to Chapter 8. And Chapter 8 is a chapter that tries to put some tangible exercises into some of the things that we have learned in chapters 1 through 4. So what's happened in chapters 1 through 4 is we've discussed semiotics, the study of signs and symbols. Chapter 2, Marxism, the unequal distribution of wealth and the way in which institutions work in this capitalist society. Chapter 3, psychoanalytic criticism. Primarily discussed Freud and Carl Jung and the relationship to this psyche, that human beings, how human beings curtail their actions. And Chapter 4, sociological theories. And Chapter 8, we skip ahead to Chapter 8. It has to do with a particular kind of advertisement. And Berger, what he does with this particular advertisement is he uses some of the elements of the other 3 or 4 chapters as a kind of method to make some more tangible uses of the theories we've been talking about. Now, as I told you in the very first day of class, the theories that we have are, they're a little bit heady. They're a little bit difficult to absorb. In fact, I think this class is really kind of like a 300 level class that's being smushed down to the 200 level. So some of these particular theories were a little bit difficult to grasp, but we've managed to sort of make some connections to the real world, some connections to popular culture to see how some of these theories can be understood. And that's what Chapter 8 tries to do. And what I'm going to do is go through some of the aspects of this particular chapter as Berger deconstructs a rather, at one time, fashionable perfume advertisement. And he deconstructs it all the way down to the T to get a sense of how much information can be pulled from one basic piece of pop culture, such as a basic advertisement for a perfume. Okay, there's a lot of assumptions that go into this particular advertisement, and I think it's an interesting chapter. And as I said before, it gives some real world examples. Okay, so in terms of your textbook, it's Chapter 8, and on page 233 through to about 240 is the most interesting aspects of this particular chapter. And what I want to talk about is how Berger, the author of the textbook, talks about something that he pulls from semiotics called the signomy. The signomy, okay? The signomy is spelled S-I-G-N-E-M-E. Signomy. And for our purposes here, what a signomy is a signomy is a fundamental sign that cannot be broken down any further. So it's sort of like sign, symbol, and image in semiotics, but a signomy is to try to get at a root sign, to break down a sign until it cannot be broken down any further, to break down symbology or symbols until they cannot be broken down any further. And in terms of this particular advertisement in this particular chapter, the signomy is a way to which we can understand just how deeply we're penetrating this particular ad in this particular area of popular culture. Okay. On page 234, he gives a rather detailed list of the many signames that could be useful in deconstructing the advertisement in the chapter. As it says on 234, following is a list of important nonverbal signames. This list does not, of course, cover all possible signames to be found in print advertisements, television commercials, or any other visual texts, but it suggests some of the most commonly found signames. Depending upon the particular text, all of these signames have varying degrees of importance. Now, I'll just go through some of these. You should look on 234 in your textbook, but it's just a way to get your kind of ingredients in what it is that one is doing when one is deconstructing, and really, really deconstructing, looking to every possible thing in an advertisement, okay? So just in terms of some of the ones that have a certain degree of importance: hair color, hairstyle, facial structure, body type, age, gender, race, facial expression, body language, makeup, clothes, style of eyeglasses, earrings or other body adornments, setting, relationships implied or inferred, spatiality, occupations, activities going on, background, lighting, sound effects, music, typeface in text, design, color. Again, you don't have to write all those down, but you get a sense of what we're talking about, and look at them on page 234. They're just the ways in which you can sort of remind yourself when you're truly trying to deconstruct a particular kind of advertisement or a particular kind of text. So Berger talks about this as a case study. What he means by that is there's this particular kind of advertisement that is seen in magazines, or had been seen in magazines, for a couple of seasons. And it's an advertisement for perfume. And what he does in this particular advertisement is he breaks through all the signames as much as possible, the things that can't be broken down any further, and tries to absorb what is understood, what the connotation is of all those signames within this particular ad. Now, he starts discussing this on page 235 and goes all the way through to 240 or so. What I want to do now, although this is not, necessarily the best presentation of it, I want to show you the ad as much as I can through this rather awkward way. Okay, this is the advertisement for this perfume. Okay, I will pop it back by the camera every once in a while. It's for Fiji. What is it called? Fiji perfume with a French name. Okay, and you see the woman there, and it's a kind of ad that we would pass by in any kind of magazine all the time, or perhaps a billboard, or perhaps a web page, or maybe even on television briefly. Okay, and it would take us a minute to figure things out, but what this particular chapter does is try to break down all the signifiers or signames that are in there to get a sense of what this ad is communicating. Okay, so this is a little bit awkward, but what I'll do is I'll go through some of the notes here in the text and then show you the picture again to get a sense. So the first signame that they're talking about here, the formal design of the ad. In the minds of most Americans, formal design, simplicity and spaciousness are associated with wealth and sophistication. Advertisements for expensive or classy products often are full white space. That is, they are relatively empty. That ad has full white space behind this woman. Okay, and if you look at that, that's supposed to signify the idea of a certain degree of sophistication. the warm colors, even though the picture is in black and white, right? The ad shows a yellow orchid in the woman's hair and full red lips and fingernails. Red is commonly used to suggest passion. Okay, I know the picture is in black and white because it's just in his textbook, but when it was a full-fledged ad, the woman's lips were very bright red. Her hair had a yellow flower in it, an orchid, and she has red fingernails. Okay, the partial showing of the woman's face, because only the bottom part of the woman's face, just above her lips, is visible. It is possible for women viewing this ad to identify with her more easily than if her complete face were shown. The woman's lips are partly open. Open lips often suggest sexual excitement or passion. Further, the lighting emphasizes her long and slender neck. Okay, I'm going to show the picture of the ad again, and I want you to pay attention as much as you can see in this awkward way I'm showing you, is that it has white space behind her. Try to imagine the red lipstick and the red fingernails, and also understand that you only see the part of the woman's face. Okay. Here is the ad again, okay? Now imagine she's supposed to have red fingernails and full red lips that are partially open. Why don't we see her eyes? Why don't we see her eyes, right? We don't see her eyes because if she has eyes, then she has an identity. Then she's actually somebody. She's a person, not just woman. Not just woman who is somehow or another standing in and symbolic of other women who are perhaps interested in some sort of sexuality because of her open lips and her red fingernails and red lips and open mouth. But there are no eyes there. She has no eyes. She's become an object in this particular photograph. Okay, and the kind of very, very light white space that's a little bit behind her, and the design is fairly sophisticated. Okay, the woman's ethnicity. In popular imagination, Polynesia is connected with fantasies of natural love and sexuality. The French painter Gauguin abandoned France for Polynesia, and many people are familiar with the story of his escape to paradise, where people are not burdened with the rules and rules and prohibit. I can't speak tonight. Oh my goodness. Prohibitive behavior, civilization and its discontents. So the woman, it's hard to see that she has any actual ethnicity, but her hair is dark and she has an orchid in her hair. So it's possible that the signature is suggesting that she is from a faraway paradise kind of land and not somebody waiting for a bus on, Connecticut Avenue. The woman's hair. Dark hair in American culture is often associated with warmth, heat, and sexual passion. Women with blonde hair, on the other hand, are often thought of as Nordic and cold and innocent, sexually unresponsive. The woman's hair is long, also something frequently connected in popular mind with youth and sexual abandon. This explains all the commercials showing young women with their hair flying in the breeze, running through meadows toward presumably their lovers. It's quite common for women to cut their hair short when they get older so they don't have to bother with it as much. So the woman's hair, again, is another signature. It's quite dark and it's quite long, emphasizing this idea of a certain degree of sexual abandon. The name of the perfume. The perfume Fiji makes the connection between the perfume and Polynesia and all the connotations that go with it explicit. The copy in the advertisement reinforces the notion. The yellow orchid. Flowers are the sexual apparatus of a plant, so there's a hint of sexuality in the use of the orchid, which due to lighting is prominently displayed. Also, flowering is a word often to describe a woman's becoming physically developed and with that sexually receptive. Flowers are signs of love. Orchids are thought of as rare and delicate and are associated with the tropics. Again, this idea of a paradise land with the orchid in her hair. The snake. Did you happen to notice that she has a snake around her neck? I mean, why that would sell perfume, I have no idea. I mean, if I saw a woman at a bar with a snake around her neck, I would run for the hills. I don't understand it. But it's a signature, so we're going to deconstruct it, okay? The snake, according to Freudian theory, snakes are phallic symbols by virtue of their shape. Example of the iconicity that used both in semiotic and psychoanalytic interpretation. This image, a woman with a snake around her neck, is also found in Piero di Cosmo's portrait of Simonetta Vespucci and other works of art. An example, intertextuality is described in chapter 1, the conscious or unconscious borrowing from work from another. The relationship between women and snakes goes all the way back to the Garden of Eden. The outcome of that relationship's Adam's temptation has been of considerable importance in Western history. One may argue that the snake is the story of the Garden of Eden is a prototypical advertising executive. According to the book of Genesis, the serpent was more subtle than any beast in the field which the Lord God had made, and convinced Eve that she ate from the tree of knowledge and good and evil, she would die, but her eyes would be opened. After she ate from the tree and convinced Adam to do the same, they were both thrown out of the Garden of Eden. All kinds of things followed from that expulsion. Eve's excuse was, the serpent beguiled me and I did eat. Advertising executive and beguiling the progeny of Adam and Eve ever since, although they had not been required to slide on their bellies and eat dust. Another association with snake is found in Greek myth and Medusa, one of the Gorgons whose hair was made of snakes. Any man who looked upon Medusa turned to stone. Hair, this myth suggests, has power. I discuss this matter shortly. So the idea that the snake is equivalent to Eve tempting Adam out of paradise. It's a sexual connotation, a phallic sexual connotation that seems to suggest this idea that this objectified woman is representing a kind of sexual abandonment and sexual paradise. The intertwined fingers. The woman's fingers are intertwined in a rather curious way, with a finger in one hand shown poking between two fingers of the other, giving the vague impression of a penis coming between two legs. We find intertwined fingers in the same well-known works of art, such as Botticelli's Primavera, so there's another intertextual relationship that might be considered. The bottle. The perfume bottle has a large stopper and is shown along the highlights that run across it. A vertical black line runs down the middle of the bottle, and the horizontal black ribbon is wrapped around the neck of the bottle below the stopper. The woman's nakedness. The woman is not wearing any clothes, which reinforces the photo's paradisical image. Before Adam and Eve ate from the tree of knowledge, they were naked, and nakedness associated with Western consciousness and innocence, and as in the case of nudists, for example, the desire to gain the innocence of paradise. Curiously enough, now we do not see any indication of the breasts. They seem to have been airbrushed out. Showing breasts might suggest maternity and related matters which would not be conducive to fantasies of primordial sex with a natural, reed, uninhibited woman. Showing breasts is much different, I would argue, than showing cleavage, and certainly indicating breasts, which is a sexual turnoff for men. If we look back at the intertwined fingers, the way in which she's almost unnaturally intertwined them here and here, it has a kind of phallic imagery. And the idea that the woman's breasts are just, she's naked, but there's no breasts there. I mean, I bet you didn't even notice that before, right? Now, when I say that there's no breasts there, I'm not trying to be like, juvenile about it, but like, why would there be no breasts, right? Because if there are breasts there, then it takes away from the idea that the woman is some sort of kind of fantasy. Now, if there was cleavage there, it might make it more sexualized, but her maternal sense of having breasts are completely dislodged from the picture. It's very curious when you think about it. If you look deeply at this particular photograph, it barely makes any sense, but that's the kind of photographs we see all the time in advertisements. It's trying to tap into a kind of subconscious desire and make the perfume connected to sexuality. Otherwise, it's just a very strange image of an eyeless woman who has no breasts with a snake around her neck, right? We don't see that when we watch it. When we first notice it, we just take for granted that it's just another advertisement. But it's deeper into the recesses of our idea to break down signimes. The use of French. The text of the ad is all in French, which is undoubtedly used because it's metronymic qualities, because Americans tend to associate French with style, sophistication, and sexiness. The French language also is means of separating those who be from in a class who know French and understand French in advertisements, which is not very difficult, from the masses. Again, this idea that the copy is in French, the advertising copy, the words in there, it's in French. It's to make it seem classy, to charge more money for the perfume. I think you get the general idea, right? And if you continue on all the way to 240, you can get a sense of how this particular advertisement breaks down for particular kinds of notions of symbology. It's all symbolic. And it's using some of the things we had from the previous chapters. It's using psychoanalytic to some degree. It's using semiotics to a high degree. And to some degree, it's using sociological stuff, okay? It's trying to make, this example is trying to make something more useful and tangible for you to see how it is that our popular culture is inundated with theoretical applications that we can think through and not necessarily be bought and sold at the marketplace by people who are trying to make as much money on selling us something not only that's a commercial product like perfume, but a sense of identity, a sense of style, a sense of sexuality. And that's problematic because it takes away people's understanding of themselves. Over on page 240, there's a kind of polar oppositions drawn from the advertisement. And it has a box where they talk about women of color and white women and the ways in which these two things are delineated differently in the advertisement or in the real world. I would ask you to take a look at that particular aspect, okay? The Fiji advertisement is a pretty good illustration of how it is that we can deconstruct popular culture. And it's using the deconstructing element of the signame, a sign which can no longer be broken down any further, that it's broken down to its last degree, to really get a kind of list, a list of ingredients to see how it is that the symbols of the advertisement works. Excuse me. And I think that it's a useful chapter to get a sense of how it is that we can start to think about perhaps our next project class presentation. You might want to break down a particular kind of advertisement using this method. The chapter is not too long, and it's somewhat useful. And I think that it's something you should look into, okay? Now, a couple of things. This would be the lecture for tomorrow, for Wednesday. And then next week, we'll start looking into a different chapter. I think video game chapter will be next week, which I could use your guys' help with in terms of internet questions. If you want to give me some email questions about the video game chapter. Just to remind you, the video game chapter is a little bit outdated, but the general idea about the video game chapter is the notion of how successful video games have become in the past 25 to 30 years, and what are some of the societal effects of 2 generations or more of people spending so much of their time playing video games, and what that means in terms of how video games have affected society. Some of the examples they have are a bit outdated and I think misclassified. At least that's what some students have told me in the past. I'm no video game master myself. I've never really played many video games. I'm not interested in them. But video games are a powerful force in the past really 20, 25 years, as you well know. And the other thing is that, you have to keep an eye on what we're going to be doing in the next few weeks in terms of advising for the fall and or summer, or if you think you're graduating, okay? I don't have you in the classroom to remind you of this all the time. I only have this YouTube lecture. If you think that you're going to be graduating soon, you have to email me, and you have to find your degree evaluation, which I think you can find online, no problem. And we can either do it by email to figure out if you're going to graduate, or I think I have Zoom that might be able to work for 40 minutes at a time if we can do a Zoom meeting. But we can't waste time if we do a Zoom meeting, or we can even do it over the phone. I'll be happy to advise you, but I think that if you're supposed to be graduating soon, you really have to let me know. If you're graduating this semester, you really have to let me know soon, because I think you have to do a graduation application. I'm not sure how they're doing it online because everything's online right now. But people are going to graduate. I just have to make sure that you have the proper amount of credits. Or we really have to be careful to make sure that we're doing the best we can to sign up for fall classes. Now, God knows what's going to happen all through the summer into the fall, but there will be a school here in the fall. And, if I'm right, my sense is that because the economy is going to be a little bit screwed up, more students will come back to community colleges because of it's inexpensive. And if that's the case, which I hope that it is, I hope that we can help to provide quality education at a reasonable price. That means that you may not get the classes that you want unless you start taking them now. Start signing up for them now. And I'm not sure how we're going to do that, but I think you'd be able to do it online. But please let me know what it is that you feel like you think you have to take. I myself am teaching, Intro to Mass Communication, which most of you have had, and 2 film studies courses this fall. One is called American Film, which is a 100 level class, and it has to do with independent cinema, and that I think is on Tuesday. And the other one is Focus on the Director, which is a 200 level class, and that's a course in famous filmmakers over the years, and that is on Thursday. Okay. Also, NCC's Communication Arts Department will be teaching, I think, 3 journalism courses for you journalism people. Intro to Journalism, which is the regular journal class, Media Writing, which is a 200 level, and Digital Journalism as well. Okay. Now, right now, up on banner, there's no faculty names listed. Every name says staff. I'm not sure why that is, but I think it was going to be done and then shut down, and I'm not sure if the person who does that, but we do have staff for all of those people. It's very important, I think even more so than normal, that we have decent registration numbers from the spring to the fall. So please email me, and please, please, please be checking your NCC email. Make sure you're doing that. It's very, very important that you check your NCC email, because I don't have everyone's personal email. I only have your NCC emails. Even if you've emailed me with a personal email, you're all on a class list that is basically the banner list, right? The banner list of the computer system for NCC. So please do your best to link your personal email to your NCC email. Most students have been able to do that. Okay. And if you haven't done that, or you don't know how to do that, just go to your NCC email, please. I beg you to go to your NCC email to get all my emails, okay? So what we've done essentially 2 chapters pretty quickly here. We've done chapter 4 over 2 sessions, and chapter 8 tonight, essentially. So we're moving along rapidly. Email me questions if you don't understand something. Don't let it get too far past, okay? And obviously, please make sure you're taking the Corona stuff seriously. I'm sure you know people who have it. Some of my students have it. Some of my students and their families have it, and they're working their way through. Thank God so far. Most people have not been too terribly affected. But I don't know. There's some students I haven't heard from. There's some students in this class I have not heard from back. I just haven't heard from. I've emailed them. I've called them. I haven't heard back from them. I don't know why. God, I hope to good God that they're safe. So if you're one of those students who know you haven't emailed me, please email me, and have a good night and a good afternoon to tomorrow, and make sure that you're staying safe, man. Take it very, very seriously. Wash those hands. If you can get any hand sanitizer, utilize it. If you run to the store real quick, make sure that you're running right back and using hand sanitizer and/or washing your hands. Wash down your mail when it comes in. Wash down stuff that comes from Amazon. Wash down doorknobs, whatever. Just, this is a really tough time, and I wish you all the best. Okay. Good night.